I never thought I'd hear these words from my own stepdaughter. Why don't you just disappear forever? She thought it was just anger. She had no idea. I was about to take her words, literally. The house was supposed to be a home, a place of warmth, laughter, and family. Instead, it felt cold, silent, unwelcoming. From the moment I moved in, my stepdaughter made it clear I wasn't wanted. Every glance, every word, every action screamed it. I tried to be patient. I tried to show love. I tried to earn respect. But respect cannot be begged for. It is earned. That night, she sat across the table, arms crossed, staring at me like I was invisible. Her father didn't intervene. He rarely did. And then, the words came, the ones that would change everything. Why don't you just disappear forever? She said it calmly, like she was discussing the weather. I felt a chill run down my spine, not because of fear, but because of clarity. This was the moment I realized patience had ended. Disrespect would no longer be tolerated. And her words, her careless, cruel words, they would come back to her. I smiled quietly. No one saw it. No one would. Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge begins silently.
After her words hit me like a cold blade, I didn't rush. Revenge isn't about anger, it's about precision. I spent the night quietly, thinking. Every word she said, every look she gave, every careless action, it all mattered. Her arrogance was dangerous. Her father's silence only made it worse. I opened the house documents for the first time that night. Mortgages, ownership papers, everything carefully stored. The house wasn't just a building. It was leverage, a tool, a weapon. For weeks I watched her smirks, her disregard for me, her little gloating moments. It fueled a plan. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg for respect. I would make her feel the consequences without her seeing it coming. The first move was simple, subtle, and completely invisible. While she ignored me, I smiled quietly to myself, because patience, combined with strategy, is the deadliest form of revenge. And just like that, the first seeds were planted.
After that night, I changed. Not on the outside, on the inside. I stopped reacting, stopped correcting her, stopped trying to be seen. And that confused her. People like her thrive on reaction. When you stop feeding them, they feel it. She started watching me instead. Where I used to argue, I stayed silent. Where I used to explain, I simply walked away. That silence, it wasn't weakness. It was preparation. I noticed how comfortable she felt in that house, how she claimed spaces as hers. Her room, the living room, the future she assumed was guaranteed. She believed I was temporary. That belief became my advantage. One evening, she casually said, "You don't really belong here anyway." I looked at her, calm, unbothered, and for the first time, she looked unsure. Because she didn't know that every quiet step I took was moving her closer to something she couldn't stop. The house still felt like her kingdom, but kingdoms fall long before the walls crack. And she had no idea that the ground beneath her was already shifting.
Weeks of observation had given me everything I needed. Every word she said, every careless glance, every assumption that I was powerless. I no longer felt anger, not anymore. I felt clarity, a calm, calculated focus, a slow-burning fire that demanded justice. I opened the house documents again, ownership papers, mortgage details, the legal power that I had quietly held the entire time. It was all there. A simple signature, a minor meeting, and I could take control without anyone suspecting a thing. I contacted the agent. Nothing flashy, no announcements, no drama. Buyers were already waiting, curious, imagining their future in this perfect home. Meanwhile, she wandered through the halls, completely unaware, talking, laughing, oblivious to the storm quietly brewing around her. I smiled softly. Not a single word, no reaction. But inside, I knew. Her world was about to tilt. The power of revenge isn't in loud confrontations. It's in subtle moves that leave your target questioning everything. Her arrogance had blinded her. Her father's silence had aided it. And now, her confidence would become her weakness. I left the papers on the table, small, quiet, deadly in its simplicity. By the time she noticed, it would be too late. I walked past her casually that evening. She didn't glance at me. She didn't need to. Soon the walls she claimed as hers would no longer belong to her.
The house felt alive that day. Her laughter echoed through the halls, careless, proud, untouchable. I let her think she was in control. Every move I made was silent, unnoticed. Every decision calculated. The agent had confirmed buyers were visiting tomorrow. They were excited, imagining themselves in her perfect home. She wandered through the rooms, opening closets, inspecting spaces as if the house had always belonged to her. Little did she know, the papers had already been signed. The change was invisible to her, but unavoidable. I made small adjustments, leaving documents slightly visible to the father's eye, hinting subtly at what was coming. Her curiosity was piqued, her arrogance shaken, and she didn't even realize it. That night, she tossed a casual remark over her shoulder. "You're really quiet these days, like you're planning something." I smiled softly. "Yes," I said lightly, but my eyes betrayed nothing, because true revenge is quiet. It waits, it builds, and when it strikes, it hits harder than anyone could imagine. Her father whispered a question to me later, worried about her reaction. I nodded calmly. She'll realize soon enough. That was enough. The first ripple had formed, and by tomorrow, those ripples would become a wave. The morning was calm. Too calm. I watched as the first buyers arrived, smiles wide, excited to step into what they believed would be their new home. My stepdaughter didn't notice anything unusual at first. She wandered from room to room, checking closets, opening drawers, imagining this was still her kingdom. I stayed in the background, observing. Every step she took, every careless laugh, every confident remark, it all fed the plan silently unfolding. The agent walked her father through the formalities, while she peeked curiously at the paperwork on the table. Her brow furrowed slightly. A flicker of unease passed over her face. "What are they doing here?" she asked casually, trying to mask her uncertainty. I smiled softly. "No one told you?" I said calmly. Her head snapped toward me. What?" she stammered. I didn't answer. Not yet, because the realization is always more powerful when it comes slowly. She started pacing, checking rooms she had claimed as hers, looking at the papers she hadn't noticed before. Her confident smile faltered. The buyers toured the kitchen, the living room, the bedrooms, oblivious to the tension rising. I walked past her casually, holding my coffee, a quiet smile on my lips. The subtle changes, the unseen signatures, the legal power she never considered,
All of it had created a quiet storm. By the time she looked again at the table, the envelope with the finalized sale documents caught her eye. Her hands trembled slightly. The room seemed smaller, the walls tighter. Her father stepped in, looking at me with mixed emotions: surprise, guilt, and disbelief.
This is final, he whispered. I nodded gently, letting the words hang in the air. She stared. Then panic struck. The reality of her arrogance and disrespect hit her like a wave. For the first time, she realized she wasn't untouchable. Her comfort, her laughter, her dominance in the house, it was all temporary. And I had orchestrated it quietly, patiently, without raising a single alarm. Her eyes filled with fear. Her hands gripped the edge of a countertop. "Wait, this can't be happening," she cried, voice shaking. I stayed calm. No shouting, no pleading. Just the cold, undeniable truth. Her world, the house she treated as her own, was slipping away. And that panic, that realization, that was the first true taste of the consequences she had ignored for so long.
Her initial confusion quickly turned into panic. This can't be happening," she screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. I remained calm. Every fiber of my being was still measured, controlled. No reaction, no shouting, no dramatic gestures. Her father tried to intervene. "Let's talk about this. Maybe we can fix it," he stammered. She turned to him, eyes wide with terror. "No, she can't do this. It's my house." I stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. The calm in my movement only amplified her fear. "This house," I said softly, "has always been mine to control. Your arrogance blinded you to reality." She stumbled back, gripping the edge of a table for support. Her legs shook, her breathing quickened. Her confidence, the same confidence that used to mock me daily, had crumbled into panic. You can't just take it," she shouted. I didn't mean it, please." I raised a finger, quietly cutting her off. "You spoke words carelessly," I said. "You told me to disappear forever. Words have weight, and now you're facing the consequences." The room fell silent, except for her rapid breathing. Her father looked at me, powerless. He realized this wasn't anger. This wasn't revenge in the common sense. This was calculated justice. I walked past her calmly, letting my presence dominate the room. Every step echoed in her mind like a drumbeat. She had underestimated me for years, and now she was learning. Control has consequences. Her panic intensified as she realized the buyers, the signatures, the finality. Everything she assumed was untouchable had slipped from her grasp. For the first time, she was completely powerless. And I simply stood there, watching, letting the truth settle like a cold shadow over her. Her world had shifted, and there was no turning back.
She sat on the floor, trembling, her face pale. I didn't mean it," she whispered, voice barely audible. I looked at her calmly. "Yes, I know," I said softly. "You just didn't realize words matter. You told me to disappear forever, and words like that have consequences." Her eyes widened. Tears streamed down her face. Her arrogance, her mockery, her disrespect, all of it collided into raw regret. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. Revenge doesn't always need a loud voice. Sometimes silence, presence, and undeniable reality are far more powerful. She looked around at the empty house, her once confident domain. The papers, the buyers, the ownership she never considered, all confirmed the truth.
She had assumed control. She had assumed dominance. And now the lesson was unavoidable. Her father stepped forward, trying to comfort her, but even he knew some lessons can't be undone. I knelt slightly to meet her eyes. "Now you know," I said softly. Now you understand what it feels like to be powerless." For hours she sat there, silent, processing. No words could undo what had happened. No tears could erase the reality. And slowly, the fear transformed into understanding. The lesson was clear. Disrespect carries weight. Arrogance blinds, and consequences are inevitable. That night, as I walked away from her room, I felt no satisfaction in cruelty. I felt satisfaction in justice. Calculated, silent, undeniable justice.
The house was silent now. Her laughter no longer echoed through the rooms. She sat on the floor, surrounded by packed boxes, realizing that her world had shifted forever. Why didn't anyone stop her?" she whispered to her father, voice shaking. Her father shook his head, helpless, understanding that this was not something he could fix. Her pride had crumbled. Her arrogance had turned into fear. Her confidence had been replaced with regret. I walked past her calmly, observing her reactions. Every tremor of panic, every tear, every gulp of breath, it was the proof that the lesson had landed. "You wanted me to disappear," I said softly. "And I did. But not in the way you imagined." Her hands shook as she tried to process everything. She understood finally that words, carelessness, and disrespect have consequences far deeper than she had ever imagined. Her father looked at me, a mixture of awe and fear in his eyes. No one had to say a word. The silence, the truth, the power of calculated action had done all the talking. And in that moment, I realized revenge isn't about anger. It isn't about destruction. It's about teaching lessons that cannot be ignored, lessons that burn long after the moment has passed. She cried silently for hours, her body racked with the realization of her mistakes. She had demanded power over me, over the house, over reality itself, and for the first time, she felt powerless. The stepdaughter had learned, painfully and deeply, that words matter, respect matters, and arrogance has consequences.
The final day had arrived. Boxes were packed. Buyers had walked through, smiling, imagining their new life. The house, the place she once claimed as her own, was slipping from her hands. I walked through the halls one last time. Nothing needed to be said. Nothing needed to be done. Her eyes met mine. Tears streaked her face. She didn't speak. She couldn't. She had begged. She had cried. She had pleaded for mercy. But there is no mercy in calculated justice. I stopped at the front door, looking back one final time. The house was quiet. The storm settled, and the lesson delivered. Her father tried to speak. I can't believe this." I smiled faintly. "Believe it. Words have weight. Actions have consequences. Disrespect has a price." I stepped out. The door closed silently behind me. I had disappeared, just as she demanded. Not by fear, not by anger, but by reality. The house, the arrogance, the control, gone. Her panic, her regret, her tears, etched into memory. Some lessons are harsh, some are unforgettable, and some come silently, like a shadow you never saw, until it fell. I left, knowing the message had landed. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply vanished, leaving the consequences to sink in forever. She had told me to disappear. I did, but on my own terms. Revenge had been served, and justice, silent, inevitable, undeniable, was complete.